Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective.
Welcome to Behavioral Health Today. I'm your host, Dr. Graham Taylor. My guest today is Ashley Williams. Ashley is an educator, emotional wellness advocate, mindfulness expert, and successful CEO of Clymb. Realizing that the development of emotional intelligence skills in youth predicts later life outcomes, Ashley launched Clymb, an interactive emotional wellness software for school-aged children. Ashley was the 2022 Culture Builder of the Year for Baltimore, which honored her work to make children's happiness a policy priority. She also received the Mayoral Recognition for her advocacy work to advance emotional wellness for Baltimore City youth. Ashley is an alumni of John Hopkins Social Innovative Lab and was recognized by Rowe Price as a Highlighted Moonshot Innovator. Ashley has been featured on NPR, the Baltimore Sun, Champions of Wellness, and Technicality. With over a decade of experience in the field of emotional wellness, she has dedicated her career to helping individuals and organizations increase their overall happiness and satisfactions in life. Ashley, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me, Graham.
It's great to have you here. Ashley, I want to have our listeners appreciate a little bit more about you, how you came into this field. I know that you've candidly shared that you've had some challenges, or you had challenges kind of growing up, not feeling as though you fit in, battling with some low self-esteem. You're very declarative of this and very open and transparent about it. And on your site and on your videos that you share, not having, you said, some of the interpersonal tools to manage the emotions that you had as a young gal.
That's right.
Share with us, more about your early journey growing up and also how this led into the creation of Climb.
Like most young people, experienced a range of emotions, and I never really had any tools to help me regulate them.
Mhm.
And as I grew into young adulthood, so about 18 or 19, I was diagnosed with clinical depression. And I was really interested in the science of my brain. What was happening that was causing me to feel the feelings that I was feeling and to think the thoughts that I was thinking? At the time, I was also really interested in proactive approaches for managing my emotional experience. And so this is really where the story starts. I love for the science of the brain, one, and also my love for mindfulness. Fast forward a few years, I'm a classroom teacher, and I'm recognizing some of the same emotional patterns in my students, although we grew up in totally different environments, same experiences. I notice how those emotional experiences impact their academic performance, how it impacts how they engage with one another. And I worked in an environment where there was a lot of trauma. I worked in a city where young people didn't have access to a lot of resources, and that
Mhm.
impacted their performance in the classroom. So I started to practice some of the tools, the coping skills, the techniques that I had utilized as a young
Really?
adult, and just noticed an immediate difference in my students. I became known as the person in the building who could do social emotional learning very well.
Mm.
Eventually, I was promoted to be the director of climate and culture of this K through 8 school, where I was responsible for the emotional health of not just the students, but the staff. And in that capacity, I would develop content, I would write curriculum to promote emotional wellness throughout the building and social emotional learning. And in that place, I learned so much about what we were doing in school systems that was working and what we were doing in school systems that was not working. And
Mm.
essentially, it was the things that were not working that compelled me to leave that position to start this company called Climb.
Really good. You're talking, you mentioned twice, you were so curious about the science of your brain. And we're going to come back and talk about the science of Climb because you've got some really cool step-by-step things that the users of this program can really benefit from that actually has a science behind it, that has some measurable outcomes that are really significant. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. This idea, though, where you noticed these patterns that you recognize that we can bring a mindfulness to. And I'm curious, as an educator, you shared witnessing firsthand our youth
Mhm.
today experiencing, as you described, debilitating stress that
That's right.
affects not only their academic performance, but a struggle to focus and the subsequent emotional outbursts that can come from that. which is leading to, as you described in one of your videos, kind of this crippling depression, anxiety, stress. And without going into COVID right now, because we all know some of the remnants of COVID, but let's just talk about our youth just in general. What are the underlying stressors that you'd have us
Yeah.
understand in the lives of our young people that are manifesting experientially in these experiences that they're describing and you're witnessing?
Yeah. So right now, 1 out of 5 young people in the United States suffer from a mental, emotional, or behavioral disorder. The
Yeah.
U.S. Surgeon General, as well as the American Psychological Association, just like admitted that there is a mental health crisis
Yeah.
for young people. Of course, we know how the pandemic contributed to that. We've been having that conversation for a while, but there are other stressors. There's like a stigma now that is
Mhm.
accelerated for young people because of their online access. So there's bullying. A lot of young people are concerned about climate change. A lot of them are
Yeah.
concerned about mass violence, in addition to your typical stressors of just adolescence, of
Yeah.
growing up. And so what happens is this is causing trauma to young people, and trauma brains have
Mm.
difficulty paying attention in class. They have difficulty retaining information. They have difficulty regulating their emotions. And this impacts, of course, academic performance, but also their long term life outcomes.
Mm.
And so 1 out of 3 kids has some adverse childhood experience. The more adverse childhood experiences you collect, the greater the likelihood that you will develop a mental health disorder at some point in your life. And that it also impacts like how much you earn. It impacts the type of employment that you get. It impacts your level of engagement with the criminal justice system, in addition to
Mhm.
just your overall life satisfaction. So the issues that we're talking about with mental health for young people is huge, because
Mhm.
if we don't address it now, it has a snowball effect where when we're looking 20 years, 30 years down the line, our young people are really going to be paying the price for our lack of movement on this issue that they are suffering from.
Man, that is so well stated. I really like that. 1 in 5, 1 in 3 for kids with the ACE, adverse childhood experiences and the trauma brain. There. This is for a later show. I'd like to kind of plug this idea that there is so much going on in our youth's experience to exposure to all of these things. And, we don't have a fully developed frontal lobe, which is involved with planning and reasoning and organization and judgment and discernment, all these things that are higher functions. So children are
Mhm.
really vulnerable to the things that are stressors in their
Mhm.
lives, including the bullying and all the things that are going on politically, et cetera, et cetera. And we can bemoan that fact, but it's not going to change. But what can change, I think, is how these young people get to have this information presented to them, but how we can create opportunities to guide them through it with understanding. I think that comes within the family. I think that comes from healthy adults to help them understand these things. Otherwise, there's just panic in their
That's
wee little
right.
minds that they can't process these things. And there's
That's exactly right.
people with agendas that want them to hear certain things and bend this, whatever it is. Putting that aside for a moment, there's opportunities for them to be, I believe, guided through some of these things. Let's flag that for another show. We'll bring you back and we'll talk about some opportunities to do that. For now, let's talk about some of the things you're saying with a mindfulness that can be brought to this, that the young people, anybody using your program, Climb, can actually access within themselves. Of all
Mhm.
the things related to emotional wellness, you're seeking to spread happiness. It's fairly
Yeah.
clear in your site. Why happiness?
Happiness is a human right. And if we're not addressing this issue, we're denying our young people their human right. That's how I think about this. And so we access happiness when we can be at peace with what is. We're not giving our young people the opportunity to practice that skill. And that's my why for Climb,
Nice.
to equip young people with the tools to climb the daily mountains of life.
Yeah.
Every life has a mountain. There's a mountain in every moment, if you will. Oh, I
Yeah.
have to turn in this paper by this time. This thing happened with my kid. As adults, we're familiar with navigating those mountains. Our children are not. And often we're not preparing them or giving them the tools to climb the mountains of life successfully. So that's what Climb is all about. It's about equipping our young people with the tools so that they can summit their lives successfully. And mindfulness is one tool, one aspect that if we teach this to our young people at a very early age, we can
Yes,
not only improve mental health, we can improve the social climate. A healthy society is nothing but a group of healthy humans. And so often when we look out at our world, it's just a whole bunch of people who lack emotional intelligence, which is a
absolutely.
learned skill. The
That's
same way that
absolutely
you learn
right.
how to structure a sentence, the same
Yeah.
way that you learned how to solve that math equation, you can learn the skill of emotional intelligence. So I see my work as solving a problem in the moment, but it's also a solution for the future.
Yeah, that's a great piece. It's a human right. As I think about that, I think with some exceptions, happy people make the world a better place. And you're both at a micro level and kind of a macro level within their own personal lives, but also kind of in a global way. And the pursuit of happiness, not to be confused with, the pursuit of pleasure is more hedonistic, but this pursuit of happiness, this is a noble, what one talk show radio host talks about. It's a moral obligation. You're saying it's a human right to provide kids an opportunity to develop this part of themselves. I couldn't agree more. But after that,
Mhm.
we get to say that we all have a moral obligation, and it benefits everyone around us when the individual is pursuing it. It benefits our humanity, as you're saying, in a larger way. We'll talk about that in a little bit more in the show too. Yeah, I really like that piece. Yeah, human right, moral obligation for
Mhm.
each of us to work towards that. Hey, let's talk
That's
about the
right.
science. Let's talk about the science behind Climb. So this Climb uses interactive assessments to
That's right.
deliver personalized learning plans according to Castle's 5 social emotional competency. Let me just name them real quick: self-awareness,
Mhm.
social awareness, self-management, responsible decision making, and relationship skills. Talk about how Climb works and how this interactive process that you've created, which is pretty cool, it's fun to go through and see
Mhm.
it, really is
Yeah.
impactful. Walk us through it.
Okay, so Calm is an example of an emotional health software that's designed to support mental health. The software is providing an initial emotional wellness assessment when a young person logs in. Based off of the data, followed like they have daily check-ins,
Yeah.
the software is able to measure through an algorithm where that child is with their emotional development and say, like, you know what, Ashley needs support with her responsible decision making skills,
Yes.
or Ashley needs some support with her social awareness. Based off of that, it will provide me, Ashley, with three personalized resources that meet me exactly where I am. So a part of this is one, the accessibility of it. It travels with a child. We want to empower them with coping skills that they can carry around in their pockets. The other part of it is the personalization. Every child is unique in their development and where they are and what's relevant for them. And by making it personalized, we can maintain their level of engagement. This is interesting for me because it's for me, but we can also increase their competency over time a lot quicker because it's not just so broad saying like everybody in third grade is
Yeah.
learning this specific thing because
Right.
some third graders are here and some third graders are there and some are over here.
We'll be right back after word from our sponsor.
Most of us spend more time at work than anywhere else doing anything else. So why not spend that time in a job you love? Introducing Triad's Jobs Marketplace, the only job site dedicated specifically to behavioral and mental health professionals. Featuring more than 1,000 open jobs from dozens of behavioral and mental health employers, and searchable by location, professional field, employment type, specialization, and more. Jobs Marketplace helps you find your next career opportunity. Full-time, part-time, or gig time, make the most of your time. To access Jobs Marketplace, register for your free professional account at hellotriad.com/BHT. That's hellotriad.com/BHT, and then click to Jobs Marketplace. If you're already a member of the Triad community, visit app.hellotriad.com/jobs. That's app.hellotriad.com/jobs. Visit us today and take your next career step tomorrow.
When you look at it like that, you mentioned earlier our emotional, IQ, our emotional quotient, our EQ.
Mhm.
It's not like at third grade you have this, at fourth grade you have this, like you might, kind of developmental math skills. You go from plus and
Mhm.
minuses to division to, whatever it may be. You're talking
Mhm.
about you measure somebody where they're at and you customize a program around that. So at any time from any device, a Climb user gets to access these industry kind of recommended surveys that measure, like you said, their state of current emotional health. And then Climb recommends these specific emotional wellness resources. And you guys have a pretty extensive library and the content of this for them to browse, but you present them with something that's specifically and customized around where their needs are developmentally.
That's
I love
That's
that.
exactly right. So, like, if you walk into a classroom during climb time, you'll see kids doing different things. Every kid has
Right.
on their headset, they have their device, but some kids are doing deep breathing. Some
Yeah.
kids are stretching, connecting their body and the breath to induce the relaxation response in the brain. Some kids are watching an animation video talking about, bullying. It just depends on what's needed in that moment for that kid.
Climb time. That must be a fun part of the day to walk into a classroom when all the kids are doing their own specific part of this. And I
That's
looked at
right.
some of the things they're offered kind of in the categories. There's a category of mindfulness, there's a category of growth, mindset statements, there's energizing moments, there's coping cues, there's mindfulness stretches, there's SEL curriculum. Talk about one or two of those that you kind of particularly like, have a fancy for.
I really like the coping cues, and like all of our resources, we worked in collaboration with experts in the space to develop them. The coping cues are maybe 30 to 40 seconds, minutes of content to redirect the child. And what
Yeah.
I mean by redirect the child, if you have racing thoughts, you can listen to a coping cue about what do I do if I have racing thoughts. If you feel like your chest is heavy, you can
Yeah.
listen to a coping cue about what to do if your chest is heavy. If you feel like, I have a boundary that's been breached, you can listen to a coping cue about how to establish healthy boundaries. Really love the coping cues. One of the favorites, though, from our younger children who are on the platform are the energizing exercises. That is
What give
like
me an example of
the
those?
favorite. So, energizing exercises are intended to have them move the body to reduce stress within the body and also to use the breath to reduce stress within the body. So,
That's
there's a lot
awesome.
of movement in short time span. So, this could be from anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes tops. But of course, kids like that kinesthetic thing. So, that's one
Yeah.
of their favorite resources.
That's so good. We did a show recently with Kumoso, which is a breathing apparatus. Looks a little bit like a small whistle, and
Mhm.
it allows you to regulate your breathing on the exhale. So this idea of the energizing movements, the exhale stimulates the vagus nerve, which goes to all of our bodies, organs, and allows
Mhm.
us to come to a place of relaxation. And in a very short period of time, when
Mhm.
practiced, anybody can access that. What a cool set of
That's right.
things to teach
Mhm.
kids that at any time they need it, they can access these tools. And like you said, these are learnable things. You're not born with them. It's not like, oh, your IQ you're born with, you can't change that very much. And so you either got it or
Mhm.
you don't. You can work hard
Mhm.
to, get things, but with the EQ, we can grow this. It's a
Mhm.
set of skills. And
Mhm.
these, 2, 4, 6, the 6 different areas that you help kids grow it in is pretty exciting. Also, too, you mentioned something earlier. The best measure of success in life is our EQ. I mean, we all know people with a lot of letters behind their names or people in high positions that have a pretty low EQ. And those are
Mhm.
really damaging people a lot of times
Mhm.
because they're really smart. They got positions of, authority, et cetera, decision making, but they're not that well tapped into parts of themselves, whether it's their own self awareness, their own awareness of other people, how to bring people together, how to manage their own reactions to things. They're out of control on the inside. It comes out on the outside. And the relationship skills are really developmentally arrested. And no matter how much potential they have, they're hindered by a low EQ. And so you're teaching the kids very early on how to master that aspect of themselves, along with all the things they're going to learn academically. What a nice pairing for them to go through in
Mhm.
their developmental years.
I agree. I think that the pairing is so important. Right now, as a society, we're primarily focused on the academics, which academics are really important. I don't disagree with that. And it's incomplete. It's like you have peanut butter, but you don't have the jelly or the bread.
Right.
You need to add that peanut butter to it because you don't have a great PB&J.
Right.
So when we
There's the
when we
pairing.
approach there's the pairing. So when we approach the education of a child from such a linear perspective that
Yeah.
it's exclusively academics, we actually limit or cause harm to that young person in the long term.
Yeah, I'd agree. So you've got this in terms of the science around it. You've got the assess piece, you've got the respond piece to which they are presented with these modules. And then you've got an opportunity where you define it as kind of growing. These are metrics that allow informed decisions regarding mental health. And you get to monitor the key emotional wellness data points and analyze the progress over time. So it's not just the kids go through some exercise and then, good luck. These are measurable things that then you have feedback on and we continue to help them grow in these areas. Talk about the measurable aspect of this.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So we're measuring those 5 competencies that you mentioned earlier, the social
Yes.
awareness, self-awareness, responsible decision making, and so forth. And we're measuring that over time within the platform. And based off of that growth over time, we constantly know where that young person needs support. That's how we're able to continue the competency growth over time. That data is then reported to stakeholders. So a parent can engage with that data, a
Good.
school can engage with that data. We're also aggregating the overall emotional experiences of the youth users. So if Timothy is angry 30% of the time, his parent is going to know that, or his school counselor, or his therapist, whoever is that adult stakeholder that works with Timothy within the Clym platform. The idea behind it is that one, we can watch those emotional experiences grow more healthy over time. But two, no kid falls in the cracks. A lot of kids won't talk to an adult or to a parent. But
Right.
it feels easier for them to communicate how they're feeling in a platform like Clym.
I would imagine that the skills and the opportunity to practice responding emotionally, through the platform would expand their ability to then take that to a relational level, maybe with parents at some point, or maybe parents get a chance to be curious about what they're doing and have an entree into say, hey, what are you doing? What are you learning? Where have you grown? Or give me a
Hmm.
sense of an exercise or what's an experiential cue that I could even practice. And tell me
Hmm.
how you bring and share that with the stakeholders, whether it's employees of the school, a teacher, for example, or a therapist that you mentioned, or maybe with the parents. How do you bridge that work that the kids do with those stakeholders?
So when we onboard Clym at an organization like a school or a school district, we work very closely with them. We pair them with a partnership success specialist to help them develop a climate and a culture in their school buildings around social emotional learning and around emotional wellness. This is the type of stuff like Graham, that the work happens through consistency.
Mhm.
So we only meet our mission as a company if we're helping these organizations to help young people utilize the product consistently, because that's where they make the gains. That's where they make those emotional wellness growths over time. So that's a really important component to us to be able to go in and support the schools with the implementation as well as with the climate and with the culture. We also train all of the staff through professional development on the best practices for Clym in the classroom with their children. And we also work with the person on site within the building who's what we call a Clym lead, and that is the Clym expert in the building. And we're in constant contact with the Clym lead to support any hiccups that come along the way that might cause a delay in the implementation of the platform. In terms of how we work with parents, that varies depending on the organization. Some schools will communicate the data from Clym the same way they communicate grades from the academic classes. Like,
Okay.
it's first quarter. This is how your
Yeah.
child was performing according to Clym through the self-reported data here. There's also a parent dashboard in Clym. So a kid has their own dashboard. The whoever what we call the Clym champion, that's the adult stakeholder in a school building who is getting the data from the child, but then they can also sync it to a parent if that's helpful. It's up to the parent if the child, for example, has a therapist that they're seeing or a counselor that they're seeing if they want to share that information.
Mhm.
But in order for any child under 13 to access the platform, we do require parent permission. So that's like built into the platform because from the
Mhm.
very beginning, we want parents to be aware about, this platform and how they can engage with their child as they're using it. We find that, and studies show this as well, these type of programs have a lot more stickiness when the conversation is brought into the home, when it's not just
Absolutely.
something that the kids have to do for 5 minutes in homeroom, but when the
Yes.
parents are referencing calm and also just emotional wellness and allowing children the space to be emotionally vulnerable, it really does make a difference in their growth.
We talked earlier about this idea of pairing the academic growth with the social emotional growth. And
Hmm.
that's what Climb is looking to do. And it's kind of pairing it maybe through like the proverbial report card where they get both. Here's the
Hmm.
growth from first quarter, second quarter, third, fourth. But I also like the idea that you're pairing an opportunity to educate parents that being in school doesn't have to only be about academics. It
Hmm.
gets to be about another area of growth that we can actually learn along the way, the emotional intelligence piece that maybe they didn't even know about themselves. And so you get to educate them about the importance of, through a program like this, one's maturity grows. You grow in your maturity, you grow in your self-awareness, you grow in your ability of self-control. Imagine
Hmm.
that. Imagine
Hmm.
these things, because one success in life can only be built upon whether or not this someone is emotionally regulated enough to manifest the skills and abilities and talents and gifts that they've been given. If you've got a stable foundation emotionally, and if you don't, well, I don't care how smart you are, you're not going to be fully seen. So you're allowing both of these to be paired, not just in the classroom, but in the home as well, to be talked about. Really nice.
Hmm. Hmm. Thanks, Graham.
Yeah. What kind of successes are you seeing? Let's kind of measure, because you're talking about coping skills towards empowerment.
That's right. So 62% of our users report feeling more focused. 55% of them have shown emotional wellness growth. And I think it's about 33% have demonstrated better behavior. We also just wrapped up an IRB study. We've partnered with the American Heart Association in that study, and the data is very promising. I'm really excited when it's going to be published. I'm going to share it with you, Graham. In this study, we were looking at not just the emotional wellness growth aspects of it, but how does it impact a school's climate? How does it impact teacher
Mm,
burnout? There's a huge conversation in our nation right now about the mental health of our educators. And so there's a question and an obvious connection between how the students feel in the classroom and how that impacts the experiences of the teachers
yeah.
within the school buildings. So all of the data there is very promising, and we're excited to publish that.
I know when you talk about the ramifications of this, there's even a dollar ramification in this as well. We know that the mental and emotional behavior disorders will cost the world about $16 trillion by 2030 in healthcare, criminal justice, work
And
days
work
lost,
days.
and work days lost. Yeah, and this is on your site. And just by increasing the emotional intelligence and improving the emotional health, we can begin to change the course of this. And what you found, which is really cool, given that emotional intelligence is a learned skill and we can help them develop and be empowered in these areas, it empowers us so much to come into any situation emotionally and relationally equipped. You're saying that there's a study out of Columbia regarding social emotional benefits, and you found that $1 spent on a program like this yields $11 in long-term benefits, improved mental health, reduced juvenile offenses, higher lifetime earnings, higher civic engagement. These are significant measurable aspects, aren't they?
They very much are. And they really do make visible the importance of this type of work.
Yeah. Yeah, it,
Mhm.
it, it is. I think when we recognize the benefit of it, it becomes not just, wouldn't it be nice if we put this in our programs? It becomes an essential part of helping kids reach what I believe is going to be their potential. We always like stories on the podcast, and give us a story of whether it's a user going through this, or a family, or a classroom, or
Mhm.
kind of a climate in a school. What are you noticing in terms of maybe a hallmark story that we can kind of get our arms around?
Yeah, I'll give you a Hallmark story. This is from a classroom from one of our schools that is based in Atlanta. I actually just recently went there to visit. It's a classroom of third graders, a rambunctious age. And the classroom teacher said that prior to the start of Climb, she just could not get a clear feeling for what was going on with her students, like emotionally. There was also just like a lot of outbursts in the classroom, just random stuff. Somebody will throw a airplane across the classroom. It's going to set the kids off. And they've been using Clomp since the start of the school year. And she said the difference is remarkable between the kid's ability to sit and to focus before using Climb and after they use Climb. The kids themselves are also super ecstatic about it. They really love the mindfulness resources. One little girl said, like, it's just so nice to have something to go to. Like how wonderful is
Yeah.
that to just have a tool
So good.
to go to? And then for the teacher, it's just to have her finger on the pulse. She can look at any moment to see this is what's happening with my class. 45% of my class is feeling pretty good today, or 20% of my class is not having a good day. Maybe I should check in with Timothy. He said he's been angry for 3 days in a row. So, what we mostly get is just an appreciation for the communication that now exists between the teachers and the students in the classrooms, as well as the outcome, the natural effects of practicing with these type of tools, of the kids' ability to focus more on the learning at hand.
Wow. That's amazing, Ashley. That really is. To be able for an educator to experience that firsthand and watch the transformation, to have information about her students, it makes her interactions with them far more personal, far more understood at a deeper level. I would imagine the kids so appreciate rather than being disciplined for something, bad behavior. Maybe the student or the teacher gets to understand, hey, you've had a couple of bad days. How are you doing? And they get to
Mhm.
come in and meet them in the same way you're talking about how the Climb curriculum matches in a customized way where the students at and gives them some exercises. This information that the teachers, maybe family even get to have, allow their interactions with the child to be kind of customized as well, if you will, at the level, at the issue that they're really dealing with in a much more known, intimate way. That's got to
Mhm.
feel so much more personal for the child receiving that interaction.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean that's my goal.
You're clearly hitting it, clearly hitting it. Hey, I would love for you to leave our listeners, some of whom may be educators or work within the school systems, with a takeaway message about the importance of children's emotional health and the benefits of incorporating a program like yours into their educational process.
Yeah, emotional wellness should be the first thing, the same way that a person needs food in order to be energized and productive and to perform. Emotional wellness is just that crucial. It's the food that is required for a young person's success in life. And so, as stakeholders, as school leaders, as teachers, as counselors, it's our job to make sure that we are providing what is healthy and what is right for our children for their life success. And I'll tell you, this is not something that educators need to be convinced about. 93% of
Yeah.
teachers believe that SEL is as important as academic learning. The gap is that only 11% feel prepared to teach it. So the key here as a school leader is to make sure that our educators feel equipped and ready and
Yeah.
prepared
Good.
to address it because the desire is there. They totally get how important this is.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm thinking
Mhm.
as you're talking about the food pyramid, this is almost like a life pyramid where we want people to have, family
That's
relationships.
right.
We want them to have educational opportunities, but we want in that pyramid for there that to be that social emotional learning component. And that's near the bottom. That's
That
basically the foundation upon well, go ahead, take it from there.
No, I agree. I'm just like, yes, that's exactly it. It is the foundation of that pyramid on which all else is built.
Yes. And our
Yeah.
success is going to be predicated upon how solid that is. Otherwise, it's going to be built on a cornerstone that's improperly set, and they're going to struggle for their whole lives. As we talk about the exciting aspects of Climb, I would love our listeners to, after the show, learn more about you and Climb. Give us some ways for them to follow up with you and Climb.
Yeah, you can find us on social media. It's at Climb, that's CLYMB_up. Or you can visit our website, which is climb, CLYMB, up.io.
Really good. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a joy to have you and for all you're doing. Thanks for that piece. You're helping to develop and creating young people that have such an important awareness foundationally about who they get to be and who they are and how to have these skills that come into life with a sense of mastery and competence that gives them confidence as they navigate life throughout their life. So really nicely done and so appreciate you being on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Graham. This was awesome.
It's been great to have you here. I also want to thank you, our listeners, for dropping by and joining Ashley and me today. It's always great to have you with us. Regarding our episode, I want to remind you that it and an archive of all of our other episodes can be found on our webpage at triadhq.com/BHT. So check out our webpage, triadhq.com/BHT, and explore our archive of podcasts and other resource materials. Thanks again for being with us on this show, and we'll look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Network, all rights reserved.